Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of On the Rise with Candace Cordelia, a Broadway World interview series where we introduce you to rising stars on Broadway and the shows they're starring in. Today, I am very proud to present two lovely, talented women on the stage today for Broadway World. We have Joy Woods and Keri Rene Fuller. They are two of the queens in Six the Musical. We are so excited to have you both today. I already have chills because I'm thinking about the show. I'm thinking about your performances. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having
us. Happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
You're so very welcome. You know, there's so many things that I want to say. First and foremost, thank you both for your magnificent performances in Six. You know, I went with a friend recently, and it was like being at a concert. And it was so joyous because after the past several years that we've had, you know, everyone was just so amped to be there. We were dancing, we were singing, and you both were spectacular. So thank you for your time and your talents because it was truly a stupendous performance from you both.
Oh, thank you.
You're so welcome. And I do want to state, because this is very important, so the characters that Joy and Keri play, they are two of the six wives of Henry VIII. And this is stemming from a real historical, event that happened back in the 1500s. Oh, we have our
Sorry.
We love the furry friends.
The dog is really trying to be in this interview.
I love it. He wants to be interviewed. I can't knock him for that. That is so fantastic. So, Joy, you play Catherine Parr.
Yes.
And Keri, you play Jane Seymour, two of the six wives. My first question for you both is, in terms of the history, in terms of the wives themselves and their backstories, how much did you know about each of these wives before being cast or rather after being cast in the show?
I've always loved European history, and so I have followed for many, many years the Six Wives of Henry VIII. Jane Seymour, funnily enough, was one of the least interesting to me because there's no gossip about her. There's no tea. She's just like a woman who, you know, they loved each other, whatever. She had a son and then she died. That was her story. And obviously after I got cast, I learned a lot more about her. We're both the same age. Well, I'm the age that she was when she died and when she had her son. And, you know, just that Henry chose, even after his next three wives, to be buried next to Jane Seymour. Little Easter eggs like that just, whether or not the audience really knows that we know that information, it does amplify our performances a little bit more, just because we know those things.
And what about you, Joy?
I did not know anything about Six coming into it. I don't know. During the time that it was on the come up and while it was overseas, it just went right over my head, and I didn't get to learn anything about it until it was go time and the callbacks. You know, I'll do a little Google search, and then when we got the jobs, we got materials on the history of the Six Wives, and going through all of that was really, really interesting and really insightful. And like Keri said, you know, sometimes it's for us on stage to know, and for us to have those looks between each other and the knowing.
Yeah. One of our castmates, actually, Brittany Mack, who plays Cleves, she's fabulous in many ways, but in rehearsal the other day, she was like, it's kind of like the Meryl Streep thing where like you always have some sort of secret in your head that like the audience is not going to know that secret. That's kind of the point of, you know, having a secret, but that we know that it comes through in a way that might be even slightly subconscious to us, but adds a little sparkle. It's like the little special sauce.
You mentioned Ms. Cleves. She was amazing, Brittany Mack. And, thank you for bringing her up, because one of my next questions that I have for you both is about the chemistry that you all have together, all 6 of you. Also fantastic. And it's magic when you see that on stage, right? When everyone is just harmonized, as you all were with these songs and dances, but also harmonized with your chemistry and with your performances with one another and the things that you were giving and taking from each other. Just absolutely magical. What was it like working with all of the other wonderful, talented women?
We're still in the process of it. Yeah. It's only been 2 weeks, and what the women that have been on stage this whole time, on stage queens and alternates included, they've been at this for, safe to say, 3 years, closer to 3 years. So I'm very grateful that we're walking into a room of such good people, like good people, and they're so welcoming, and it's easy to mesh with them. But it's only 2 weeks in, so I'm very happy that we have so far to go, because where we are right now is great.
I second all of that.
Yeah. I'm so happy that I had Keri during this audition, the rehearsal process, because we rehearsed with the girls that were going on tour with their preview was it 2 days ago?
Yeah, it was either last night or the night before. They had their first preview in Chicago.
Yep. And so we rehearsed with them. And so we weren't with the Broadway queens, and we just had each other. And I'm very grateful for Keri.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
Oh, yeah. It was, I told Joy, I was like, I don't know how I would have been in this rehearsal process without you. Like, if I was by because like the tour queens are amazing, but at the end of the day, we're not performing with them.
So like, we can build
that is not.
And
yeah, and we're witnessing such amazing magic in that room of them creating chemistry together, and like how they vibe and gel it's so amazing. And then we're kind of like substitute, cast members that are just like learning the show. Like our job those 3 weeks was just learning the show. And then luckily through that, Joy and I created a good chemistry of rehearsing with each other, and then with all the dance team as well. And then we started rehearsing with the alternates, the Broadway alternate queens, which they're just superstars in their own rights. They are like, I don't know how they keep that information in their heads. I can barely keep track of my role. I don't know how they do 3. It's like very sneakily hard.
Yeah. It's very intricate.
Yeah. And I think we only had one rehearsal with the Broadway queens that we were going to be performing with every night. And then we were in our put-in rehearsal, and then we were on stage. So it was a very fast-tracked process, which I'm so proud of us for, like, that we kept up and we held our own, and that we are, joining a cast of very, very comfortable people. Like they're comfortable with each other. We've crazily enough been able to establish this kind of trust in such a short period of time, which is imperative to this production, because trust is what can build chemistry, and chemistry is what we feel on stage and the audience feels. So it's been all around, like, I'm so excited to see the deeper chemistry that we find over the next, several shows. And yeah, it's very fun. It's always different. It's a consistently evolving organism.
Yeah. And for you, Joy, this is your Broadway debut. So this experience has to be even more, heady and amazing and all the things. So talk to us more about what it's like having this particular part and this show being your Broadway debut for you.
In one word, I would say, I take it back. I don't think I could do it in one word. It's all happening very fast. It all happened very fast. Though I don't think it could have happened any better. I think I'm the type of person where things need to happen fast, so I don't get slow or left behind. I need to keep keep it moving. And this show, I came from doing Little Shop of Horrors. I was one of the urchins. I played Chiffon. And we used to joke about it over there that going from a girl group of 3 to a girl group of 6. Much harder, much more intricate, but I feel like my years over on Skid Row had definitely prepared me for it. It's a dream. It's a dream. And I'm still catching up with the dream now. But I've got Keri. I've got the girls.
I mean, I will say that even though, like, this is not my Broadway debut, it's my first, principal track on Broadway. And I am still, even years after Broadway debuting on Broadway, like, I'm still catching up with the dream. Like, and this is an entirely different dream too. It's like, first of all, witnessing Broadway debuts is so magical because we know that feeling, and there's no other feeling. There's just no other feeling than, like, you're proud of yourself, you're terrified, you're like trying to figure out what sustainability 8 times a week is for your body, for your voice, for your mind, for your spirit, for your emotions, for your personal life. And because I think it's very easy when you're a principal track on Broadway, and even in many shows, like, actually, I'm just not even gonna say principal track, like pretty much any show on Broadway right now, it's very difficult to have a life outside of that because so much is demanded of you. Yeah. So much. And I was talking to my boyfriend about this morning. I hope I'm not sidetracking too much, but I was like, we were talking about sustainability and how I've always been so, like, such a master of my voice, and to learn what that means to use my voice in this capacity 8 times a week is hard. And it can be very taxing because you're like, oh, I have a tickle. Like, what does that mean? Like, is my voice just like pickles in my throat right now? Like, I don't know. And so, like, we have these amazing audiences and this amazing queendom that we are wanting to give our, like, 100% best every single performance. And like, sometimes, like, it is not our, what we know to be our 100% best, but it is the 100% best that we have that day. And that is also very scary. And that's where our amazing audiences are so kind and generous of spirit to understand that like every time we're on that stage, like, it is everything we have for that moment to give to them and to share with them. And so it's a huge lesson all around doing this show in many ways, because we don't really leave the stage for 90 minutes, 80, 90 minutes. We don't leave the stage, and all we have is each other and our in-ears and the chemistry with the audience. And so there's just so many moving pieces that is what I think makes this show so unique and this experience so unique, and what is so amazingly fun for audiences to come see 8 times a week.
Yeah. And that's why the chemistry thing is so important.
Yeah.
Because the eye contact and the energy that you guys share is all you have for those 90 minutes. If you're feeling well, you have to pull it from each other and from the audience. And that's all I gotta say.
And we could go on and on.
No, and that's what we love. That's what I'm here for. And the chemistry and the eye contact and how all of you were gelling, we saw that. It was ever more apparent in light of that, and going into also your characters. So for me personally, I related to all 6 in so many different ways, but Catherine Parr's story for me is I was screaming because I was like, yes, a writer and doing all of these things that I personally didn't even know was a thing in the 1500s, being in terms of women's empowerment, education, being an advocate for that. That was powerful to see, especially in this story, for you both, for your respective characters. In terms of the story, and we alluded to this before, and you talked about this a bit, Keri, with your character, but for both of you, were there certain elements to your character that were just seamless in terms of being able to connect with?
I mean, I love a good dad joke. I love
was gonna say.
I love a joke that like is just so cheesy. I love it. Like I believe that the sense of humor that Jane and I share, um, and the willingness to be vulnerable, and she's kind of like in a way kind of like an outcast of the like I've always been slightly different as all, you know, theater performers. We're just from other people. It's I think it's very easy for us to feel very alien. And I very much resonate because Jane Seymour does not derive her power from you know, like I'm a better woman without Henry. That's not what Jane Seymour derives her power and her empowerment from. She derives her empowerment from I loved him. And I'm convicted in that. And I didn't do it the way that a lot of women probably would have, but like I trust my decisions. And so I think her willingness to be vulnerable and open and honest in the face of, you know, adversity is similar to at least what I strive to be. I don't know if I am that right now, but I strive to be that.
First off, I would definitely say the jokes. I think Jane and Catherine have a similar sense of dad dry humor that
Yep.
at least in both of our opening speeches, monologues before our songs, that we try to dip into in effort to keep the story moving or sometimes deflect what you're feeling. And I know I personally do that. I love humor. But she's the last of 6 queens. I'm the last of 6 children. I feel like her version of surviving I can translate into taking what I've learned and what I've seen from my older siblings and just watching the lives that they've lived and taking that wisdom and moving forward with it and trying to blaze trails and trying to open up new doors for people that come after me. That's usually what goes through my head in terms of relating it, because I certainly am not a writer. I couldn't rhyme car and bar if you to. But yeah, that's how I relate it.
Really?
I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you were the last of 6 kids.
Yeah.
I knew you had a lot of siblings, but I didn't know that correlate. That is so cool.
She survived, baby.
Survivor. There you go. Seriously. You know, I want to pivot into the Queenspiration. You know, this is a story set behind the backdrop of the 1500s, but in a very modernized way,
Totally.
which is fantastic. And we have to talk about the Queenspirations for you both, because the songs are pretty much like modern day pop rock type songs, and ballads too. So I understand, you know, there's different Queenspirations, but for you, Joy, for your character, I believe Alicia Keys is one of the Queenspirations, and for you, Keri, for your character, Adele is one of the Queenspirations. And you can see this in the portrayal with your characters, especially when you're getting into the songs and dances. How much were these musical icons of today on heavy rotation for you? Were you constantly listening to the music to really get you in the mode of your characters?
I did a lot when I was a kid. So it's normally in rotation. She's normally in my playlist, so I didn't have to up the ante at all. But I do remember Alicia Keys' songs were many pivotal moments in my upbringing, like dance classes. We learned how to do the pas de bourrée, the triplets to her songs, and a lot of the love songs, a lot of the dance competition songs. Alicia Keys was around. She was around, baby. But yeah.
I mean, I've always loved Adele and I loved that she was like just not ashamed of having an entire album of ballads. I was like, I seem to always get hired to sing ballads, and I'm not mad about it. I'm like, I will sing you a ballad. So I mean, similarly, I've listened to Adele's albums over the years, like on heavy rotation, just because I love her. Sia is also another. It's those two for me, well, for Jane Seymour, and I didn't come into Sia until a little later of in her existence. Um, but I started listening to a little bit more. That was more for the audition as opposed to the actual preparation of the role itself for me personally.
I also feel like your Jane Seymour is very much Celine.
Oh, Celine Dion, she shines. I think I
Yeah.
try and bring Celine into everything I do just because I love her. She was like my teacher. Well, not really, but like I learned everything I know essentially from Celine Dion, just
Totally.
listening to her.
It's
Oh,
giving
it shows.
Dion.
It shows. It definitely gave Celine in the performance. I saw that. So there you
Like
go.
honestly, the best compliment ever. So thank you.
I saw it. I'm not just saying it. I definitely saw it. It was awesome. It was really awesome. We talked a little bit about history, and one thing at the top of the interview that you mentioned, Keri, is the fact that you looked a lot at European history growing up, and that was something that was at the forefront, it seems, in your formative years, just out of knowing and wanting to know. But for a lot of people, I could assume, at least for me, going into watching this show, there was a lot that I didn't know. The only thing that I personally knew about was Anne Boleyn's story, which seems to be something that a lot of people can relate to. So going into watching this show was such a joy, no pun intended, joy. It was really a joy because it was a history lesson too. It was a concert, but it was also a history lesson that I think is very important for particularly young girls growing up to understand and to know, because a lot of the things are still relevant to modern day. What would you like for anyone going to see this play or show rather, and coming out of it? What would you like for them to take away from? Like, what are the things that you would want them to really understand and really unpack as they think more about the show after seeing it and going home?
I think that it's very important because this is not something that I've learned really until my later life, my more recent life, that empowerment does not look the same in every individual.
Mm-hmm.
The way, like, what is important to me to inhabit, the qualities that are important to me to inhabit is not necessarily going to be the same woman to woman. And I think that is incredibly important. I think that there's a reason that there are 6 very different archetypes of women on that stage. And there are gradients even between those 6. We have very clear pictures of what 6 different women in history looked like, and how, like, for example, Joy, how Catherine Parr, even back in Tudor Renaissance, like Tudor ages, found ways to empower herself that were ahead of her time. I think that what I have learned doing this show is that superpowers look different to everyone, and it's up to us to decide what we want our superpower to be, and then come hell or high water, don't betray that for love nor money. You just go. That's what I want to take away from it. So I'm hoping that, little girls, little boys, I don't even care, like, you do not have to be female identifying to come away from this show with a lesson.
Your answer was so good about
We've kind of talked about this though, like,
yeah, and I got stuck on it. That's why I forgot the question, because that's just so that hit that snuck in and went between my rib bones. I think that's perfect. Whatever it was
well,
that I
I
was
think it's
going to
like,
say
it's
was
so easy. And like, I just think, and sorry, like tangent moment, but like,
I just think that there's a certain type of, powerful female that is typically always portrayed. And what I think is so amazing about this show and so special about this show is that it's different. You don't have to be a Bond girl to be sexy, powerful, athletic, focused, independent. It can look so many different ways. And so I think that it's just so important for anyone that comes to see this show that they have the courage to look inside themselves and be like, what do I want my superpower to be? Not what does Hollywood, not what does American music theater want my superpower to be in order for me to be seen, in order for me to be a working actor. Like, what is it important? Why is it important to me? Because that is why shows like this exist, because there's a demand for it. Society is now demanding that we are seen in outside of the box of how we've always been portrayed. And so, supply and demand, it's not just capitalism. It's the art will catch up to what we want.
It imitates life.
Yeah.
Excellently put, Keri.
Sorry, I was on the pulpit. I was like,
no, thank yeah.
I couldn't have asked for a better way to end this interview. I really couldn't. And once again, thank you both, Joy and Keri, for your words, your time, your talent. Anyone watching this, seriously, you have to see Six the Musical, because it is, and I'm not just saying this because I have these lovely women here on the show today, it's life-changing. It really is. And it's such a great show to see after everything that we've been through as a world unit. It's one of those shows that you will dance, you will sing along, you will feel joy in your heart, and you'll learn a lot about history. You really will, and I think you can't beat that. So check out Six the Musical. Thank you, Joy Woods. Thank you, Keri Renee Fuller, for such a lovely, wonderful chat. Congratulations. And hopefully I will see you both back on the show again and on stage. And you're lovely. Thank you.
You're lovely. Thank you so much, Candace.
You're so welcome. And thank you all for watching another episode of On the Rise with Candace Cordelia, where I interview the rising stars on Broadway and the shows that they are starring in. Stay tuned for another installment. And until then, take care. Thank you for watching.